I'm glad we're finally talking about my MVP title. I think it should be a little bit more up there. I think a lot of players should know that I got this award. It's very it was fun. Oh, it's always great to be part of the first edition. It starts. I hope that it gets bigger and bigger every year. So I can always say, hey, I started this. I played the first year.
First ownership group that we brought in the second season was Philadelphia. And at that finals of the first season, we had Tracy and Shane Inspector, who came out, and actually Shannon's law firm, Klein Inspector, sponsored the finals that first season.
It was so exciting. As a former squash player, I just hadn't seen anything like that. Not only was it just the pace of the game, it's a little bit different than traditional squash, and also just seeing some of the best players in the world on court. It was really exciting. And I wasn't just excited. I was looking around and noticing everybody else was so excited about it. And I wanted to get in the action.
My impressions of the National Squash League are fantastic. I love the National Squash League. I think that it's long overdue for squash to have a team concept. It's long overdue to try to mix up squash a bit so that we have variation so that fans can see a different style of play, whether it's the power plays or the substitutions or different personalities coming to the fore. And it's just a great dimension for squash.
Philadelphia is the capital of squash in the U.S. We needed to have a team. So thank goodness, I reached out. There was an opportunity that there was going to be expansion in the NSL, and one of those expansion cities could be Philadelphia, was going to be Philadelphia. And I was so excited that, I guess the timing was right, that I got to jump right in and be an owner.
That was actually one of my favorite parts of the offseason, I think, was bringing together individuals that love the sport and also from different backgrounds. You had some player backgrounds and some business backgrounds, and trying to bring them together to try to help a game that we all love.
I was thinking, I'm going to be a team owner, but I don't want to do this by myself. So reached out to John White, former #1 player in the world and head coach at Drexel University. He was interested in being a co-owner. And then B.G. Lemon, also former Penn squash player and in the finance world, super excited about squash in general. He wanted to be an owner. So the three of us got together, and I think we have the dream team.
When it came, this idea of the NSL came up, it was a perfect marriage of, my history of playing squash, playing with my dad, playing in college, and the business world. And so as I learned more about it, through Spencer, through Timmy, I just thought it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Just sort of the ownership is like, it's sort of like your baby, and it's like you put all the effort into it, and what you get out of it is it's giving back again to a different avenue from the game that, I've played since I've been 8 years old. So, to own a team in Philly, and Philly loves their teams. So you want to get Philly Lightning up with the Eagles and the, 76ers and everything else. So hopefully one day we will be up there with those boys.
So one of the first things we had to tackle after the end of the first season was adding women to the league, because we didn't have a women's league in year one. And that was definitely a glaring hole. But at the time, in terms of feasibility, it would have been just a little bit too much for us to bite off at first to get so many players involved. But we knew it was essential to the sport to have both men and women playing in the NSL. And that's why we decided to put on a women's match at the finals. So before the finals, we actually had the first ever women's NSL match happen. And it was a big hit.
I was immediately intrigued by this new format for a sport I've been playing for 50 years. And as soon as the matches were over, I approached Timmy and Fernando and said if there was a possibility for establishing a women's team in Philadelphia. Just wanted to be involved. And I'm quite frankly very grateful that there was an opportunity to be involved.
Some of my best squash memories are here, whether it was in university or PSA. So I was hoping that I would play for Philadelphia. We did. We won. I mean, it's just a dream season for me, for us. So it is special. My best friends live here. Like I said, my best memories are here. And the team, I'm very good friend with Olivia. The team dynamic was great. And we won. I mean, you can ask for anything else.
The bond that you build with your teammates in sport is just, it's so special. And when you guys are all showing up, working hard and putting yourself on the line in these heated moments, incredible things happen, and there's nothing better.
I mean, also let me add that I'm good friend with Tina, because she's going to watch this and be like, wait, what? Because she did play with us in the final.
Everybody, please welcome on to court the 2025 Women's National Squash League champions, the Philadelphia Freedom!
You know, I think the one thing that squash has done really, really well, and similar to tennis, is have the women be on level with the men. And I know a lot of leagues in Europe and other leagues don't really do this, but also aren't as ambitious as we are. And so we made it a priority in year 2 to add the women.
With a team in DC, as well as a team in South Norwalk, Connecticut at M Squash, which is a big junior program there.
I'm friends with the DC team owner, Willie Gaynor, and he's like a longtime friend, and he's like super fun and everything. And we wanted to make squash like fun and just have like a really fun time doing this and the entertainment aspect of it all. So I told him, I was like, I will 100% play if I can be on your team. So I kind of just like said, I will definitely play this, but I want to be on the DC team because I know he also brings the fun too. And like, we kind of have that same sort of like entertainment energy. And I knew that if I was going to be on the DC team with him, like it would be a lot of fun.
I was excited to be a part of the first women's league for the NSL because the men's league had done so well and the crowd was always excited. The players were excited. It was just such a high energy environment that I thought would be really fun, in addition to me playing professional squash.
Beyond that, there were other people who expressed interest in having teams throughout that season and started to catch wind of the movement that was going on. And so another one was a team in Greenwich. Greenwich is another hotbed for squash, and they were eager to have a team there. So we sold them a men's team. And the last one was Cleveland. They had a group there that runs a PSA tournament every year, and they were really interested in running both a men's and a women's team. So they were big supporters.
You know, it was a great bunch of guys with great intentions, wanting to participate and to just be part of the NSL. I had great teammates. You know, Victor was my number one, who being close with him, I can learn lots of things of his professionalism. You know, everybody put their little bit to a great team environment. We all enjoyed playing together, and I think that it was a great atmosphere.
New cities came on board, new owners stepped in, the world's top-ranked players signed on. With every addition, the league kept expanding.
From a league perspective, I think the difference between season 1 and season 2 was the best players in the NSL in season 1, probably, Sebastian Bonmalé and Timmy Brownell ranked 28 to 30. This year we had 14 of the top 21 players just on the men's side that joined the league, and I think that gave an unbelievable validation of what the National Squash League is, the support we have from the players, and the fact that we expanded, at least on the men's side, from 6 to 9 teams, the validation that we have just in the squash community here in America on how real this is and that this thing really has some potential.
We had gained so much trust from the players by delivering on the first season that it enabled us to be able to expand ambitiously without being like, this is too much for us to take on, because we had gained trust. And I think that was a big thing that Spencer and I brought to the table in terms of like an organizational group. Even though we might not have had the business experience, we had a sort of genuine trust with the players because we are players, that we would be able to attract the kind of talent that we needed to run the league. And I think that set us up for the second season, where we got players that we would have never dreamed of playing in our sport when we first came up with this idea.
Yeah, Timmy's unique, unique personality, and we are friends, just he's amazing. He's amazing for our sport, and do you see how like he's taking it serious, but at the same time he's having fun on court. He's just amazing guy, and it's so difficult to play against him. He's such a wonderful guy, and yeah, I'm coming for the NSL what he's doing as well. So I'm joining guys the NSL, which is something really good.
Honestly, like when I saw it the first year happening, I saw how much fun everyone was having. And I did kind of saw how different it was. I'm also at a stage in my career where I'm not going to join something unless I really enjoy what I'm going to do it. And I think what actually helped as well was actually Spencer and Timmy were part of it in a way. And I actually really like these guys as well, actually, honestly. And I knew they were trying to do something really good, and they're trying to see something different, and they're very well educated as well. So I knew whatever was the brain behind it is going to be a smart brain behind the idea of this. So I wanted to be part of it, and it started with a joke from me to them actually at the start. Yeah, I'm just happy to be part of it, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to my second season next year.
With the playoffs once again held in the city of brotherly love, both Philadelphia's men's and women's teams were crowned champions in the league's second season.
It was a very exciting season. I wish I had been able to be there for the final, but sadly could not be. But the Philadelphia Freedom, the fact that we won, in the opening season for the women's league was so exciting. And I think it's just a testament to, number one, incredible leadership. Sunil is an amazing owner. Gail is an incredible coach. Also my college coach, and I remember when we were brainstorming who to bring in as the coach, I knew that Gail, no one has more experience pretty much in the sport than putting together a team and rallying everyone and creating an amazing culture where everyone is just bringing their A game.
We went into the national championships without our top two players due to a scheduling conflict and an injury. And so I think the bulk of the credit goes to the players who, during the season, took the time to study and learn the rules and the nuances of the NSL format and adapt their play, as well as our head coach, Gail Ramsey, who, with all of her years of experience, was able to, in regular team competitive squash, as well as her own individual accomplishments, analyze the nuances and assess the players on the team as well as the opponent teams and make decisive tactical and strategic decisions. And so I think that's what allowed us to prevail.
I'm glad we're finally talking about my MVP title. I think it should be a little bit more up there. I think a lot of players should know that I got this award. It's very, it was fun. I think I got it because definitely, I think I won the second period we were down, and I think I saved a lot of, I came back and we managed to win the second period over I think 1 point, which was fun. But I think it's the attacking, like I said, I like to attack, I like to win points, I like to go for shots. And I think that's why I won the MVP award that weekend. Also maybe because, let's be real, on my team, I was definitely the one who was supposed to go and win more points. And Tina, we knew was a lot better. I just keep the ball in, defending, making sure we keep the lead. The way I play is definitely more of an advantage to get this recognition, I guess. But just fun. Then Marwan had it on the men's side, a good friend. So it was just fun to just share this moment with him.
Season 2 was epic because we won the championship. Philadelphia Lightning. Wait, I have this little trophy. I'm not sure if it's your camera, but here we go. Men's NSL champion 2025. Nothing more exciting than winning that championship, our home turf in Philadelphia where we had the championship. I just remember jumping up and down. It was a really tough match, by the way. It really came down to the third game, as it always does, because the third game is worth a lot. Our players, our coaches just came through. It was super exciting.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We just had Timmy Brownell on the comms with us, but don't let that distract you from what has happened to the scoreboard here. Oh gosh, that's correct about that, but this second period is running away with the Beavers.
Have a drop in focus.
Do you think Philly uses their power play right now or when Melissa comes in?
The quality is through the Spectre Center roof.
pressure baggy, and there are the legs. There are the heavy legs.
Growth and success came quickly, and so did the challenges of doubling the league. With them came a harder question. Could the league continue?
And so we took on the challenge of expanding to these 7 teams, but we very quickly realized that it was going to be a lot more work than we anticipated.
Well, whenever you're adding new ownership, and again, I mean, you look at any sport, owners are going to have personalities. They're going to have their wants and needs. So it wasn't necessarily like the players, the challenges for the players were logistical, but none of them really questioned or question what we do as a league. They might have ideas, but with the ownership, it's different because they all have, their own vision of what their team should look like, what the league should look like, which is great. I mean, we want these ideas because at the end of the day, most of these people are business people or they understand their squash communities. And so all the ownerships, when we talk to them, they kind of have their own angle of what goal that they're trying to achieve. And so, we're just trying to find out what's the best answer, regardless of, who comes up with it. And so that can be a challenge sometimes when you do have a lot of strong personalities.
After everyone saw how the finals went in season 1, all the owners really wanted to win in season 2. And you could really feel that from the get-go, even at the draft, where owners knew the stakes involved with drafting a team and how it would pay off later in the season. And I think that led to some challenges that we didn't envision, which is things like roster complaints or strength of teams, picking up and dropping players, trades, things of that nature. And so I think immediately in season 2, going ahead of opening day, which is between Philly and New York, we saw major conflicts between the ownership groups about rosters and like, is it okay to pick up a player at a certain date and whatnot? There were so many things that were in conflict that we had to build a structure for waiver claims, timings of roster submissions. Like, what is the format for if there's a qualm, who resolves it? Was it just Fernando, who was the commissioner at the time? So I think one of the biggest things we addressed in season 2 was establishing a process for fairness in competition. Because I think we didn't envision from obviously before season 1, it being so competitive.
There were a few challenges the first year of ownership. And I think what comes to mind first was in our first match, a number of our players were either hurt or could not play. We literally had to draft other players. So we had to figure all that out. And that was a little bit challenging, but I have to say it all worked out. And the good news is that we won the match, but it was a little bit stressful, I'd say.
Despite having been part of many other teams in squash, high school, college, league teams, being part of a team of professional athletes is a fundamentally different undertaking and complicating matters. Unlike other professional sports teams where all the players live and are trained in the same location, we have players all over the world.
When you have a global sport like squash, it's just communicating. You have people that are in Europe, you have people that are in South America, you have people that are in America, and trying to speak to everybody at the same time on the same time zone is definitely one of the challenges. But along with that, when you're juggling the calendars of all these touring squash professionals, where sometimes you have simultaneous tournaments, one in America, one in Europe, one in Egypt, just trying to get everybody on the same page at the same time probably was one of our biggest challenges last year.
I think we learned a lot after the first season. We had to be much more efficient in planning each of these matches and trying to standardize them so that each match was just as good of an experience as the last one.
We were trying to, minute by minute, come up with the, what the actual production would look like. And so we started to get a lot better at that. And there were some matches that we were kind of finally like, all right, this is how we want every match to go.
Obviously, shoring up the rules, making sure that there was no funny business with stalling or like something as simple as on a power play, you could serve from either side because there was confusion there. So I think making sure we had the match rules sturdied up, production solidified, making sure we could get the jerseys done, like little logistical things I think that we learned in season 1, I think we shored up in season 2. But again, it was done at such a greater scale that I think mistakes were much more costly.
The quality control was difficult at first because we were running so many more matches than the last season. It was difficult to keep up with the workload.
We realized pretty quickly that as the league expanded, it needed so many man hours that all of us together were not able to provide because there's just not enough time in the day.
We reached a point where Timmy and I were noticing that this was too much for us. It was very difficult for us to do both of these things. And obviously we're both very passionate about playing squash, our pro careers, and this brand that we felt was so impactful in the community. So we were stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we had to make a decision as to whether we wanted to pursue our careers as squash players or our careers as business people growing this company.
And while working in the National Squash League was so exciting to me, and it was something that I could see myself doing every day, I have such a small window to try to be the best player I can be and play for Team USA and try to achieve these goals that I have, that I knew I had to take a step back from doing the day-to-day activities of the league. And so in that moment, we decided to basically hand off more responsibility to Fernando.
Timmy and Spencer were trying to focus on their pro careers because I think they had, bitten off as much as they could in the first year, getting it to where it needed to be. And so, the second year for me, honestly, it was a little lonely at times because I was putting in a lot of hours, getting a lot of emails, calls, being at all the matches, and thankfully my wife was very supportive throughout the whole process. Again, she very big supporter of the league and understand what I was trying to do and what we were trying to accomplish. So, that can't be understated.
Fernando was obviously a champ for taking that on and not letting the brand die out during that time, because he could have easily just given up at that time when, he was putting in hours every week. And
the only thing that kind of got me through was knowing that something was going to have to change. And so, I said, I'm going to hang on for a year or two, but we had to find somebody who was going to take over.
When you look at the NSL, it is a startup business. It was founded by 2 squash players and a lawyer, which is great. And it's exactly what you need. But for any business, not just a startup sports league, to take the next step forward, you need a real CEO, you need real leadership. And not only does that make things easier from operating internally, but to the outside world, having a face, having a real CEO gives you so much validation and at least directs people to where they need to look to when they're trying to work with the NSL in the future.
I started having that discussion, pretty early on in the second year. And I even sometimes questioned whether this was not necessarily worth it, but whether the NSL was even, we had fun, we've created this, but does it need to continue? And so, but the more matches we went to, the more phone calls that I started fielding of, other cities wanting teams. And we, literally started having like a backlog of cities that wanted teams. I said, it wouldn't be fair to just say, hey, we're going to quit. And so I think the conversation was then about, how do we continue? How does this maintain, and how do we continue going, keep this going forward? And so, I came up with a list of a few people that I thought could take over. It was a very short list. At that point, Spencer Lovejoy was probably the only person that I really wanted to take over for me.
He called me up and he said, I've been busting my ass on this for the last, period of time. And what do you think about taking over and becoming the new CEO of the company? And told me all the reasons why he thought that I would be good for the job and, how I could potentially bring the company forward. And at first I told him actually that I think I want to keep playing and I don't think that it's the right move for me.
I think it's very important in the niche case that you have somebody who's not only a good CEO, a good leader, but is also intimately familiar with the product or the service, that either participated in it, helped think of it, helped create it, and has that deep personal connection to it. So I think that's a critical factor for this kind of an organization.
After thinking more about the conversation I had with Fernando about the new position, I had to consult many people in my life, people who are close to me, because this was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in my life about my, career path. And I spoke to my dad about it. Actually, I called him up and I told him that Fernando was offering me this position to run the company, and I had to choose between continuing to play pro squash and running this company, because there was no world in which I could do both. It would be too time intensive in order to try and run a company and also play pro squash. So I had to make a decision, and my dad gave me some good advice. Well, he said he wasn't going to tell me what to do first. And then he told me that every time he brings up the NSL to his friends or anyone, that's asking about me or how I'm doing, it was always something that was really engaging for people who he spoke to. And they always asked more questions about it and they were interested in it. And it was just a very interesting point that he brought up. And so I just thought that that was a very powerful thing. And it meant that whatever we were building was catching people's attention. And it was a really hard decision for me because I loved playing the PSA Tour when I was playing. Obviously I'm still young and I could have continued to play for longer, but I just thought that it was a great opportunity for me to pursue my passion through another avenue. And obviously a company that we started ourselves and are very passionate about growing, and work that has been very rewarding for me, and seeing the growth and the impact that we've had in the squash community. I think that it was a very unique opportunity and one that doesn't come around that often. So that was one of the reasons that I committed to it, and I'm very excited to continue growing the league.
And honestly, I don't think if Spencer if he wouldn't have taken on the role, that we would honestly have continued. Because I don't think people understand everything that goes into it, and it's a lot of work. And so I'm very appreciative that Spencer decided to take on the role to become CEO and commissioner, because, I think the league will continue to grow and people will continue to enjoy the NSL going forward because of him.
Yeah, so Spencer taking this on full time is really exciting, because this whole season he's been kind of having to live two lives, and trying to be the best in the world at something is really hard. Trying to be the best in the world at two different things is impossible. So I think for Spencer and someone as talented as him to finally be able to put all of his eggs into one basket and really commit to it is something that could really be a game changer for the National Squash League and the sport as a whole.
Spencer, as CEO, is such a natural fit. He's the founder of the league. He's a pro squash player. He's played in the NSL. And squash, it is a very relationally oriented business. So Spencer, being from America, has so many connections in the squash world. He's part of the reason why we have teams already in 9 cities, including Newport, including Greenwich, including New York. That was all Spencer and Timmy and Fernando. And now for Spencer making the decision to retire from pro squash to take this on full time, well, I know that was an incredibly difficult decision for him. It gives this league even more validation that it really is the next big thing in squash. And so for me as an owner, having Spencer make that decision to sacrifice his professional career to take the reins of this league, it gives me a lot of comfort knowing that he's going to be the face of the league for the years to come.
I'm very passionate about growing the NSL because of the effects I've seen it have on the squash community, not just with fans, but also with our owners, with the people that we've involved. It's very cool to see everyone that we've connected through the brand, and people who would never have met otherwise because they're now involved in this project. All of our team owners are amazing people and have, a lot of talents, and they've all been really helpful in, firstly, the building of the brand itself, but also they've just been a great team to work with. And, I've really just enjoyed working with all of them and meeting all these new people who I would have never really had relationships with without this project.
The story began with a pair of questions. Was there room for a team-based pro squash league in the US? And would people care? Now the years ahead pose another. How far can it go? And what does the future hold for the National Squash League?
The future of the National Squash League is brilliant. I see more cities signing on to have franchises. I see more interest in folks coming out to see the matches. I see a lot more interest in the players. The players love the National Squash League. They love the camaraderie. They love the team sport aspect. They love that it's different. And so I think the trajectory for the National Squash League is straight up.
Definitely an improvement from the individual matches in the traditional play. And I really can see a day that this is not just the professional level of competition, and it finds its way into mainstream amateur competition. My confidence in this is based on, as a high school coach, I've coached the Conestoga High School girls squash team now for 5 years. Last year, at the end of the year, when I was focused on the varsity team preparing for the high school nationals, I told the JV team that they could do whatever they wanted on the available courts for their own practice and fun. Every single day during that week, they played an NSL style match internal to the team. They just split themselves up and played. I didn't require it. and they said they loved it and had a blast. And so I really think once juniors try it, they'll realize how much more interesting it is from the individual competitive junior squash circuit. And it allows the team to win and lose together. So they get to enjoy a victory together, that they all participated in it. Or if they suffer a defeat, they get to, pick each other up and take care of each other, and then go back and repair, recover, and return for another competitive day. And so I really think that team aspect of the competition is what's special about the NSL and will carry it into the future.
I want to see the NSL format being used across all levels. It could be played in the national team format. It could be played at the collegiate level, the high school level. There's so many different ways it could take it, and I think in the future it's only going to change the sport more.
We are all kind of collectively working on this together. We all play in the same sandbox. We all are wanting to support squash. We want it to grow. And so whether it's PSA, SDA, NSL, even Europe, your Super League, like all these leagues, everybody wants the same thing. We want squash to get bigger. We want the players to, benefit from all the hard work that they put in. And so we will continue to do this until, we feel like we have gotten to a place where players and the fans are getting the squash that they deserve.